Okay, on this video, I'm going to go over one of the midterm grammar review exercises that I put on the class webpage. I'm looking at 5A, midterm grammar review, document number 1. And most of this actually is just a review of the concepts. There are really not a lot of exercises on this particular one, but I'll sort of talk through this, and then there's another one that we can go through in terms of doing the exercises and actually applying the rules. So at the beginning of this document, we have modals and modal-like forms in the present. And as we went over in class yesterday, that really is the present and the future, because when we use these modals, it could mean right now, or it could mean in a couple of days, or in a couple of weeks. So first we start out with advice, and the modals we use for advice are should, ought to, and had better. Should is the most common. You should call your mother on her birthday. Ought to, don't forget the T on ought. Ought to is used. It's a little bit less common, and remember that it's pronounced oughta in most conversation. People say it quickly, and it doesn't really quite sound like it looks. You ought to try this chocolate cake. It's delicious. The negatives. You shouldn't eat too much pizza because it's fattening. And then we have had better. Remember, had better is a fixed form. It's always had and better. And sometimes we use the contraction with apostrophe D for had. And that is for an urgent situation. Something particularly bad is going to happen if you don't take the advice. Here I have an example. Donna had better call her mother if she's going to be late. Well, I guess the urgency of this is that if she doesn't call her mother might be upset with her. And in the sentence after that I say, her mother has a terrible temper. So her mother will get very angry if Donna doesn't call to let her know she's going to be late. This came up in class yesterday. Had better is for the present and the future. It is not for the past. Even though you're using had, this form is for the present and future only. So don't get confused and try to use it for past advice. Ability is the next category. It's can and be able to. In the present, Laura can sing. Joe is able to fix cars. Jonathan can speak Italian. We are able to help you on Saturday, just for a few examples. And then past ability is with could. So things that you were able to do in the past. We also have be able to. Things that you were able to do in the past, but that you no longer have the ability to do for whatever reason. So I often use an example such as, I could run 5 miles when I was younger, but I can't now. I just haven't been running, so I don't have the ability to do that now. Let's see, I'm scrolling back up because this went down without my permission. A couple of other examples I have here. I could ice skate really well when I was younger. I could speak Dutch when I lived in the Netherlands, but I've forgotten it all now. So I no longer have the ability to ice skate or to speak Dutch. Those were past abilities. The necessity and obligation we went over a bit in class yesterday with have to and have got to. Children have to do what their parents tell them. Or we like to think that anyway. It's a necessity, it's an obligation that children do what their parents tell them. That's what we teach them to do. You've got to hear the story. It's really funny. Or sometimes you find something on the internet that's really funny or interesting, and you might tell a friend or family member, oh, you've got to see this video. It's really interesting. And then we also use must for necessity or obligation. You must return your hotel key when you check out. You must return your rented car, otherwise you're going to have to pay way too much money. Possibility. May, might, could. Again, could is not only passability, but it's possibility as well. And you'll see the few sentences that I have on the sheet here. We may go to Argentina on vacation. We might win the lottery if we buy enough tickets. We could ride our bikes to work instead of driving. Ellie missed her bus. She could be upset. And then below that, I move on to speculation. Lorenzo hasn't eaten all day. He must be hungry. Okay, we had must and necessity. I must go to the bank today because I'm having a problem with my bank account. That's necessity or obligation. Here, for speculation, we have information about Lorenzo, and we conclude or speculate that he must be hungry. The second example, Marissa is wearing shorts, but it's snowing. She has to be freezing. We also use have to for speculation. In this case, because it's third person singular, it's has to. She has to be freezing. And then I moved on to modals in the past. And as you know, we have the modal plus have plus the past participle. Again, it's a fixed form, at least in terms of the have plus the past participle. We always have those two parts for the modals in the past, and then we change the modal depending on what we want to say. But have is always there. It doesn't matter whether it's first person, second person, or third person, singular or plural. It's always have. Do not use had in the past or has. All right, even if it's third person singular, we do not use has. So advice in the past, we're using should and ought to mostly. Should have gone or ought to have gone. I should have gone to the bank today. Now I don't have any money. Terry shouldn't have eaten that second piece of cake. Now she feels sick. And then ought to have. Barry ought to have helped his little brother with his homework. Or it was raining really hard this morning. I ought to have carried an umbrella. And then if you recall, we have could have and might have as well. They're along the lines of regret and shame. So could have, in the example that I've given here, Delia could have told Cindy about the party last Friday night. When Cindy found out about it today, she was very upset. So that's another word we use to explain that feeling is rebuke. You rebuke somebody when you tell them that they should have done something. So because they are friends, that's why Cindy is upset that Delia didn't tell her about the party. All right, and then we have speculations and conclusions in the past. The strongest ones are had to plus have plus the past participle, and must plus have plus the past participle. So the examples, Vladimir must have fallen down. His suit is muddy. Vicky must have inherited a lot of money. She doesn't work, but she has a huge house and a fancy car. In both of these situations, we don't know for sure what happened unless somebody told us. And when we come to a conclusion or we speculate, nobody has told us. We're using the information that we see or observe or whatever to come to a conclusion. So we decided that the most likely situation is that Vladimir fell down. He must have fallen down. And how is it that Vicky has a huge house and a fancy car if she doesn't work? So we think she must have inherited a lot of money. Now someone else could come to a different conclusion based on that same information. So obviously it's possible to come to more than one conclusion about information that you have. And the third one here is Larry had to have found a new job. I see him leaving home much earlier now than he used to. Okay. Or perhaps you have some friends who were dating and you used to see them together all the time, and then you start seeing one of them alone very frequently. You might say, Suzanne and Ben had to have broken up, or Suzanne and Ben must have broken up, based on the fact that now you're seeing one or both of them alone and not together. Then the weaker conclusions, I have a couple of examples here. Debbie isn't here yet. She could have gotten lost. We really don't know. We don't have as much information about that situation as the previous situations. We could also say Debbie may have gotten lost, or Debbie might have gotten lost. If if we have more information, we might come to a stronger conclusion about Debbie's situation, but we're operating on limited information. Now I've moved on to passives. I'm not exhaustively covering every single thing that we have gone over in class, but this is a broader general background, so you should come in with any questions you have concerning these or the other forms. But hopefully this will give your brain a little bit of a wake up on all of these forms and prepare you for the midterm. So the passives, we've done quite a lot of passives, but here we are again. We always have a form of be plus the past participle. And if we're doing modals with passives, it's modal plus be plus the past participle. Remember that for all passives, you could have an active version of the sentence, but you're changing the subject and the object. They're sort of switching places. So the first example here is the tree was struck by lightning. This is obviously passive because we have a form of the be verb in the simple past, was, and struck is the past participle of strike. So the tree was struck by lightning. The active version of that sentence, I'm sure you can all get by now, would be lightning struck the tree. Be very careful. A couple of people had this issue in class yesterday. Be very careful about just putting in a be verb and trying to make it a passive. You can't do that. If the subject is doing the action of the sentence, then you have to take the object and move that up to the subject spot and move the subject into the agent spot if you need the agent. But several times yesterday, people were trying to put in a be or ben to stick that into an active sentence to make it passive. That is not possible. It's a several step process of changing an active to a passive. So keep that in mind. And if you're not clear, ask. Okay, number 2 here is the lost ring could be found in time for the wedding ceremony. This is past possibility. It's a modal plus a passive. So we have the modal could, obviously, plus be plus the past participle. In other words, we're hoping that the lost ring will be found in time for the wedding by somebody. It doesn't matter to us who finds the ring. We only care about it being found. Number 3, dirty clothes are washed once a week. This could be in an army barracks or in some rooming house, or any situation where perhaps all the dirty clothes are done at one or washed at one time. So we have a form of be here, are, plus the past participle of wash, washed. Dirty clothes are washed once a week. And number 4, strawberries are usually picked in July. This is a repeated action because it's every July. So that's why we use the simple present are plus the past participle of pick, which is picked. Strawberries are usually picked in July by whoever picks strawberries. Again, we don't have the agent here because we really are not interested in who picks them. so much. I'll continue